Alright, Kuldotha Jeskai, match 1. We're on the draw. We have 2 Mole Drifters in our opening hand and no blue, which isn't great. But we have 2 lands, a Glinthawk, which we can cast if we need to, and 2 burn spells, so we will keep this. Prophetic Prism would be a great draw if we can get that early. Alright, our opponents mold to 6 and put a card on the bottom. And they have main deck Duress, which you don't see very often. Possibly mono black control, possibly something different. They take our Galvanic Blast, leaving us with only Bolt as a removal spell. And we draw a Wellspring. So I think I'm just going to play Furnace and pass here. If I had not drawn the Wellspring, there's an argument for going Ancient Den, Glinthawk, pick up the Ancient Den. But I generally don't like doing that on my first turn, unless it's against a control deck that I know for sure is a control deck, and I do it when I'm on the play, not on the draw, where it hurts less to be down a card, or down a land rather. But since I drew Ichor Wellspring, I'm going to play that first, and then pick that up eventually with the Glinthawk. Our opponent cycled a Barrenmoor on their turn and pass, which leads more credence to the belief that they are mono black control. Phyrexian Rager. I don't mind that as much as I would mind a Chittering Rats right now. So I can go Glinthawk, pick up my Wellspring, and I can also bolt this Rager. They already know that we have the bolt, so I'm going to go ahead and bolt this now, just in case our opponent is also playing main deck Undying Evil, which isn't seen that frequently in main deck or sideboards. I think it used to be a little bit more popular, but it's not as much now. Opponent Signs in Blood, and has another Duress. Here we don't really care, because both of these Prism and Wellspring are going to do the same thing now that we have a blue source with the Tranquil Cove that we played. So we could evoke a Mole Drifter here, but I really want to play these for full value against a control deck. So I'm going to start with the Prism and hope to draw a creature off of this. Another Glinthawk or a Skyfisher. Alright, we draw a Journey to Nowhere. I'll start by attacking. I also plan on cycling away this Forgotten Cave. Although, I do need it for the Mole Drifter, so if I get greedy and I cycle away the Forgotten Cave, and then I don't draw another land, or if I draw a land next turn, so if I play the Great Furnace here and then draw a tap land next turn, then I won't be able to play my Mole Drifter. So I think I'm just going to play this Forgotten Cave, actually, to guarantee Mole Drifter next turn. We've been able to keep our opponent from having a board state so far, which makes Gary a lot worse. But look, they cast a Gary anyway, so this will only drain for 2. Which is good. We can attack, and we don't actually have to get rid of this Grey Merchant if we don't want to. We can just play a Mole Drifter. So we could Journey plus cycle the Secluded Steppe. And then what? I think I want to use my mana a little bit more efficiently and just tap out all 5 mana for a Mole Drifter right now. The only way I get super punished is if our opponent has another Grey Merchant and plays that. But even then, oh, I tapped my mana wrong. I guess I can use this Prophetic Prism. Oh, that's not good, because if I draw an untapped land plus a Bolt, but I already played my land for the turn, so I can't do that. I'm going to cast the Mole Drifter, and even then I got interrupted by tapping my mana incorrectly. But even if our opponent plays another Grey Merchant, and then we wish we would have gotten those 2 Devotion off the table, that means our opponent's not interacting with our creatures. So I'm actually fine with that. We draw another Mole Drifter and a Core Skyfisher. So we just have value for days. So if our opponent's going to win, it's going to be with like a quick Grey Merchant, another one, or like a Corrupt or something to erase us. Okay, there's another Merchant. So we're going to attack in the air, and then we have Journey plus Journey, or Journey plus Skyfisher this turn, or just play another Mole Drifter. I don't love playing another Mole Drifter because then I don't block. I go down to 9 from attacks. And then another Grey Merchant drains us for 6, or a Corrupt drains us for 6 or 7. So I think I'm going to start by cycling this Secluded Steppe. And then I'm going to play... there's a Lightning Bolt. It's not very good against the 4 toughness things. I'll play 1 Journey, take out one of these Merchants, and 1 Core Skyfisher. Well, Core Skyfisher or Journey, that is the question. I think I want to save this other Journey just in case our opponent has a Gurmak Angler. It's pretty awkward if we use our only way to deal with an angler like that. Then we have to commit to chump blocking it a bunch of times. So here I can go for the value play and I can pick up Prophetic Prism. Or I can go for the safer play and pick up Great Furnace, so I have Lightning Bolt available on their turn. That's a little bit better because then if I don't draw another land, I can still cast a Muldrifter on my turn and also be able to Lightning Bolt something, whereas I'd have to decide with either way. I think I'm going to do that. I already have plenty of card draw in my hand with these two Muldrifters, so I don't need to pick up the Prism and draw again with that. Additionally, now I can block the Grey Merchant, and if I don't have anything else to do, I can bolt it. Of course, if our opponent has Disfigure, that's a little bit awkward. But if they have a Disfigure, they can always use it to take out one of our other creatures anyway, so it's not like I'm turning on a Disfigure that would otherwise do nothing. Victim of Night. Well, it's fine. They let us block first. It's good for us. Another Grey Merchant. Okay. Another Drain for 4. So we can attack for 4 in the air next turn. Do we just want to bolt the face here is the big question. Our opponent's on 0 cards in hand, so I believe the answer is yes. They could draw a 2 or 3 toughness creature next turn, but I'd rather just get that out of our hand. So Journey or Muldrifter? I believe I want a Muldrifter here first. I think that makes more sense. We're not in any danger of dying unless our opponent top decks Corrupt. Or another Grey Merchant, and they've already used one. Well, it's under here. So can we leave 2 things back to double block, or should we? I don't think that we should. We're just going to attack. We need to close out this game before our opponent finds a Corrupt. And here I will pick up either an untapped land so I have more mana next turn, or a cycle land so I can cycle it away for something different. I think I'm going to end up wanting all my mana, so I'm going to take the Furnace back. Kuldotha Rebirth is a cool draw. We can sacrifice the Prism and then have a bunch of chump blockers against these Grey Merchants for the future. So I'm going to block one of these, I think. And the reason is it means I don't die to another Grey Merchant. They would have to top deck exactly the 4th one, or Sign in Blood into it. I die to Corrupt either way, but few decks play it main deck. Some versions play 1 Corrupt main deck, but our opponent has already shown themselves to not be completely standard with multiple Duresses main deck. I don't think I need this Muldrifter to win. I think I just want to play it a little bit safe here by chumping. Chittering Rats? Okay, I can beat that. So the plan here is to Kuldotha Rebirth, triple chump block next turn, and take no damage from that. So we need to remove one of the creatures so we don't die to a Grey Merchant. So we'll Journey something, the 2/4. We will Kuldotha Rebirth away this Prophetic Prism. And we'll also play Core Skyfisher, picking up what? I suppose we'll pick up our Prophetic Prism. We can play Core Skyfisher, pick up Prism, replay Prism, and then Rebirth. So let's do that. If I draw a burn spell, it'd be very good for me. A Bolt or a Galvanic Blast to help us win this damage race. Okay. I have multiple blue sources, multiple red sources, multiple white sources, so sacking this Prism instead of a land is perfectly fine. Attack for 4. Our opponent goes to 8. And we're not dead to Grey Merchant because we are chump blocking. We're dead to Corrupt, but I think we can put the game away. Alright, our opponent has to block now since they're dead on board. Core Sanctifiers does nothing, so I will play a pre-combat Muldrifter to try to find some burn spells. Core Skyfisher. Alright, that doesn't really do anything. So we can attack with the goblins to get in 1 additional point of damage, but that doesn't actually matter because it will only take our opponent to 1 instead of 2. I don't want to throw away the goblins to do that. Play the Tranquil Cove, and no reason not to play the Core Skyfisher. And I'll pick up, I guess, a Cycle Land. So now it's Corrupt or Bust for our opponent. And they concede. I guess Tendrils of Corruption also could have bought them some time, potentially. I probably wouldn't have bought them enough time, but Corrupt is the only thing that could kill us from there, I believe. Alright, on to sideboarding. So against Mono Black control, sometimes you want this Bojuka Bog to deal with Unearth and Gurmag Angler, make those each a little bit worse. However, Unearth can always be cycled, even if our opponent doesn't have a target. And Gurmag Angler will eventually get cast anyway, and I didn't see either of those this game. Now our opponent must have cut something from the standard build to be able to play multiple Duress main deck. Maybe that's the Unearth, so I'm not going to bring that in. I am going to bring in one Negate against Sign in Blood, Corrupt, Tendrils of Corruption. Mostly Corrupt is probably the scariest thing. One Journey to Nowhere, since exiling their creatures is much better than killing them, if they did bring in some effect such as Font of Return or Death Denied. Because they could be playing Quambage Witches or Pestilence, I don't really want these Kuldotha Rebirth, so I'm going to get rid of both of those as our cards to sideboard out. So I'm going to run this with the potential to bring in Bojuka Bog for Game 3 if we lose this game. Okay, Game 2 versus Mono Black Control. We have lands, we have spells, we have all the colors of mana we need. I like this hand. We don't have a lot of interaction, just this one Journey to Nowhere, but we'll probably draw some more, and we can always evoke this Muldrifter if needed. We draw a Negate. Well, generally you want to start off with Windscarred Crag in this deck, since you only need blue for Muldrifter. But since we did sideboard into and draw Negate, we potentially want to play that here. The problem is we can't count our opponent's Sign in Blood on 2, and I don't know that we'd really even want to, for sure. And they're much less likely to play a non-creature spell on their turn 3 when we have the 2 mana up for Negate for the first time, because they're more likely to play a Chittering Rats or Phyrexian Rager. So I think I'm just going to play a Windscarred Crag, and plan on getting my blue source later. Alright, our opponent just passes the turn. So here we can go untap land, hold open Galvanic Blast to shoot a Rager or a Rat. Or we can play untap land and spell. And I think I much prefer playing a spell. I'm going to do Prism, since I want to be able to cast this Negate next turn, potentially. And I don't have a Rebirth in my deck that I could draw, so Prophetic Prism is just basically strictly better right now. Alright, there's a Rat. So because we're going to have Metalcraft pretty soon with Wellspring plus Prism plus Furnace, and these blasts will take out anything except for Angler, I think it's okay for me to journey this Chittering Rats, just to get it from not go into their graveyard, just in case they can get it back. This is only really bad against Angler, and we're going to have plenty of time before an Angler comes down, it looks like, since their graveyard is currently empty going into their 4th turn. And they just passed the turn. Okay, so this could be a Tendrils of Corruption, but I'm not playing a creature this turn, so it doesn't much matter. We'll play a Wellspring, or we can hold open Negate. And I don't really care about holding open Negate. Our opponent's not going to corrupt this early. They can't Tendrils if we don't have a creature on board. I'm going to play this instead of cycle it, because we have Muldrifters we want to cast, and pass. In general, if our opponent is doing nothing, it's better for us than them, I think. They really want to be resolving as many Ragers and Chittering Rats early as they can. I'm not going to Galvanic Blast the face. Just drew another Galvanic Blast. Well, this is really interesting. We have Metalcraft enabled, so this is 12 damage in hand. So we needed some way to do the other 8, which means we really need to get a creature on the board. However, if our opponent has 6 cards in hand, no land, and no creature that costs less than 5, that means their hand is full of removal and grave emergence, and possibly Anglers. Which means that no creature we're going to play is likely to survive, and this Negate isn't likely to do anything either. So do I hold out hope that I can eventually Muldrifter, or do I just evoke it? I think the correct answer is to evoke it. I have another one I can eventually play, and this prevents us from just doing nothing this turn. Alright, there's a land drop. And we pass. Alright, I think we're in a pretty good position now. What I'm going to do is I'm going to play a Core Skyfisher, and I'm probably going to negate the first removal spell for it, particularly if it's a Tendrils, because I don't want my opponent gaining life. Alright, picking up a Wellspring so we can draw some cards later. And I'm going to very obviously pass with mana available. I could have replayed the Wellspring I just put in my hand, and I'm choosing not to. So I think I am going to negate this. I don't really care about getting hit by a Corrupt as much when our opponent isn't doing anything else. Also, they're a lot of mana away from it. Okay, so we make them use 2 removal spells on it by using our negate. We see what our opponent's follow-up is. Alright, they finally drew a 3-drop. Rager plus cycle away a Barrenmoor. I'm not really sure why they would cycle away a Barrenmoor when they keep missing land drops. That's not consistent with our belief that they have Grey Merchants in hand. That might mean they have multiple Gurmag Anglers stuck in hand and they want to fill the graveyard. They think something there is just as good as a land in hand, but... Alright, do I blast this Rager? Probably. It's kind of awkward when I want to burn their face, but I'm not going to be able to assemble enough burn to take them all the way down from 20. I need to start resolving some creatures first. Alright. Play a Prism. Plan on playing a Wellspring and just dig for a creature. Alright, there's a creature. I don't have any counter magic up to protect this one, unfortunately. And I can play this Forgotten Cave, or I can plan on cycling it. I think I'm actually going to play this one as well. It always hurts a little bit to play lands after you have your 5th land, because you don't technically need them. You only need them if you're going to cast multiple spells in a turn, because the most expensive thing in our deck is a Muldrifter. But we can eventually pick it back up again with a bounce land and find it that way if we do get flooded. So I think it's okay to play it. Alright, there's the Gurmag Angler number 1 that we predicted was going to be there. We don't have Kuldotha Rebirth for chump blockers, so we need to find a journey for that. Start with a Prism. No journey, so I think I'm just going to play a Muldrifter here since it uses our mana best. And we might have to end up taking a hit or two from this Angler. Alright. Our hand doesn't really do anything against the 5/5, unfortunately. We could use 2 blasts to deal with it, but obviously that is pretty suboptimal when we could use the blast to deal with 2 other creatures instead. Chittering Rats. And pass the turn. Alright, so I'm going to start off by playing a Wellspring. Keep on digging for cards. Lightning Bolt. Next I'm going to cycle this step. Next I'm going to play yet another Prism. Okay, I'm going to play a land, I'm going to pass the turn, and I'm going to plan on blocking this Chittering Rats to get it off the table. Looks like we are just going to have to bite the bullet and use 2 removal spells to deal with this Angler. Alright, our opponent's going to Grey Merchant pre-combat. So let's decide exactly what we want to do here. We probably want to bolt Gurmag Angler and Galvanic Blast the Grey Merchant and leave the Chittering Rats around. Actually, I think I'm going to play it a little bit more conservatively because I don't want to get drained for any good amount here. So with that on the stack, I get rid of this. Oh man, why did I... Oh, I shouldn't have done that. Well, actually it ended up working out well anyway, because it ended up our opponent didn't attack with Chittering Rats this turn, so it saved us 2 damage anyway, but I wanted to bolt that Chittering Rats before Gurmag Angler resolved. It was just a mistake on my part. But now we have a little bit longer. We don't have to do that if we don't want to now. Cycle away the Secluded Step. Yet another land. This is not good. We have some redraws in our hand with these Wellsprings. Tranquil Cove. Come on, Muldrifter. Need more value to be able to stay in this game. Is it Boilerworks? Okay. I can pick up a cycle land. Cycle that. Give me something. Give me a spell. Alright. Skyfisher. Perfect. Well, now our misclick works out perfectly for us. Because now our opponent can't attack with their 2/2 without using a removal spell on our 2/3. Which they probably have, but they might not. Sign in Blood. Liliana's Spectre, we're going to have to let that resolve. Ditch a land. Our opponent passes. I don't think I need a Galvanic Blast anything. I have plenty of mana available. Firebolt. Well, if that wasn't the perfect draw, I don't know what was. Alright, we have 9 mana available here, so I'm going to start off by cycling this Wellspring. Muldrifter. Beautiful. Alright, let's play Muldrifter. Lone Missionaries. Okay, those are good for blocking the Chittering Rats, not the Flyer specifically. So do I want to play a Lone Missionary this turn, or do I want to Firebolt that? I don't think I want to Firebolt that. Our opponent can now Disfigure to take out our 2-3 instead of our 2-2, if they want to block plus Disfigure here, but okay, they're not going to do that. Alright, here I'm going to play a Lone Missionary, and I'm going to start trying to apply pressure to our opponent. So I'm going to use Galvanic Blast and Firebolt to clear out anything that I can't attack through, and I'm just going to try to push through my attackers as quickly as possible, and use the life gain from these things in order to win the damage race, even if our opponent has a Corrupt or a Gray Merchant. Alright, do I want to trade here? I don't think I do. I think I'm winning this damage race, since I have another Lone Missionary in hand. Liliana Spectre? That's pretty annoying. I guess I'll get rid of Firebolt. Alright. So let's start by Firebolting away this. So our opponent definitely can't block. Attack for 4. I could also leave back the Core Skyfisher, since it prevents our opponent from blocking with 2 things, or attacking with 2 things. But I can't stop them removing this Core Skyfisher, so I think it's better to attack. Play our Lone Missionary, and because of the Spectre and also the Chittering Rats, I am going to play out my hand. Not the Galvanic Blast yet until they force me to, but I am going to play the tap land. Alright, they have a Rager. And another Chainer's Edict. So now we have Flyers against our opponents. Our opponent is outnumbering us on creatures and out on cards. This is really, really weird. Why would they attack with the Flyer, but not the... Well, I think it must have just been a misclick. There's no reason to leave this back, since both of these things fly. I think I want to go ahead and shoot this out of the air, though. It's 2 Devotion when he eventually finds a Gary, and it could eventually block this Muldrifter if it decides to. Alright. Firebolt. So we take our opponent down to 9. We can Firebolt them to deal 4 damage. But then Gray Merchant or Corrupt really gets us, and we'll wish we hadn't wasted on their life total and we had taken care of their creatures instead. I also don't want to leave this in hand because it's a sorcery, so I can't do it in response to a Spectre or a Rat. So I think I'll take out the 2 Devotion thing, and then maybe I can leave this Firebolt in the yard and wait. That's not really great, though. I think I'm going to take the safe route and pop off this Rager while I have the chance. It's a Devotion for Gary. It can attack us. It helps us win the damage race. It's not as fast as Firebolting their face, but I think it's safer. Alright, our opponent is going to have to remove these if they don't want to die. They just passed a turn here, so I think they're going to have removal. Alright, there's a Tendrils, which is going to buy them a ton of time. And we have a Muldrifter. We'll see if this is good enough to get us back into the race. Glinthawk, okay. I get a 2-2 and a redraw. Journey to Nowhere. Okay. Well, that's awkward. I'm going to leave this in hand because of Liliana Spectre. I'd rather discard the Furnace than the Journey. I say it's awkward because if our opponent plays Chittering Rats, now we're forced to leave cards in our hand. Alright, there's a Gray Merchant. No other creatures, which is a good sign for us. A Tranquil Cove. Once again, it's awkward because we can't play 2 lands in a turn. So because we saved this last turn to protect against Liliana Spectre, now we have to leave it in our hand. This turn we're forced to, which is bad against Chittering Rats. I think we're winning this game, though. If our opponent has Corrupt, they could save a lot of time. If they have another Tendrils, they could save a lot of time. But other than that, their Signing Bloods are pretty painful for them now. I guess Pestilence would be really good for them because they could wipe our board and they can afford the 2 life to do it. But they don't have Pestilence, which is good for us. Alright. Tap that for mana, even though there's no real conceivable way we could need it unless we chain together all the remaining Muldrifters in our deck. And we actually only have 1. We have 2 on the field and 1 in the yard. Alright, Lightning Bolt. Our opponent's not quite dead this turn. If this was a Galvanic Blast, they would be. Another Tendrils. I could bolt my creature there to prevent them from gaining life, but... Well, I thought I could still win the race, but our opponent has 2 Tendrils, so this means I can basically never win the race. And I think I still have to save this Lightning Bolt and just let them gain a lot of life. We could have overcome 1 Tendrils there, but if we use a Bolt on our own creature, or if we don't, like, we're kind of in trouble either way. There's the Flashback Chainers. I think they have 1 more of those, right? I need to be paying attention. Yeah, 1 more Chainers in the yard. Alright, I'm going to play this out. If they want Chainers to get rid of it, they can. I just need to start finding some more stuff to do. Well, this game was looking really good until our opponent resolved the 3rd Tendrils of Corruption. We were down to 14 cards in our deck. That is insanely low. We might actually get decked before we can deal enough damage to our opponent if they have another Tendrils or a Corruptor. Creature plus Grey Merchant. Alright, there's the Flashback. Chancery, do I even have any more Cycle Lands to pick up? It looks like I don't. I'll play it out anyway. Pick up a Gain Land, I guess. I did not expect the game to go this way, that our opponent would be able to just control us so much and gain so much life that we would be decked before we killed them. But it looks like it might actually end up going that way. Duress. Alright, I'm not going to bolt their face in response. No sense wasting it, because they are taking the journey here. Man, this deck is... This matchup is crazy. So we have 1 Muldrifter left. We have 2 Core Skyfisher left. All 3 Glinthawk. So we have some flyers that can get there. Probably not in time, though. Also, I need to play a lot quicker, apparently. I have 5 minutes left on my clock for the next game. Which I think is fine, as long as I'm mindful of it. I'm just going to go ahead and deck myself here. I don't have any other options. I mean, I'm going to try not to deck myself, but... Okay, I actually need to kick this. Do I need to kick this and draw a card? I probably don't. I don't think I can afford to draw a card here. I could kick it and destroy my own Ichor Wellspring, which is one of the cool things you can do with this deck. But I can't afford to draw a card because I need to be able to kill our opponent before I deck myself. The 4th Tendrils of Corruption takes them up to 32 life. And a Victim of Night. Yeah, this is nuts. I mean, I'm going to keep on trying. That's for sure. I don't think I have a chance. I need to kill them in like 5 or 6 attacks. And I have 34 life to get through. Bolt them. Bolt them. Yeah, this is game over, I think. Well, let's see if our opponent shows us any more cards. We know they're running the Tendrils. They've got Liliana Spectre. They're not signing Blooding Us, even though we're close to decking ourselves, so they might not be paying attention to that. Core Skyfisher. So is there a reasonable chance that we win this game? No, there really isn't. We could play Skyfisher, pick up a Prism, replay it, get another creature and still not be able to attack for the win in time, unfortunately. So we're going to sideboard. So our opponent did not appear to have any unearths. They did have Gurmag Angler, but they also didn't have any Font of Return or anything like that, so I'm not going to play this Bojuka Bog. As I said before in the deck tech, Kuldotha Rebirth is really good against Edict effects, and I did not think about that when I decided that I was going to sideboard them out versus Mono Black Control. The creatures themselves aren't good, but the fact that they can be sacrificed is really good. So because our opponent still has Chanter's Edict in, I think I need to bring back these Kuldotha Rebirth. I can take out Core Sanctifiers, since they don't appear to have Font of Return or Pestilence, and even if they did, they'd probably be able to activate them immediately in most situations, since you want to play those later. I'll also take out a Singleton Prophetic Prism. Alright, we would like to play first. Alright, so what does this hand do? Not very much is the answer. I think I need to mulligan it, since it doesn't do anything, but I'm going to keep anyway. If I draw one Prophetic Prism or one Ichor Wellspring, then this hand becomes very good, so I think that's good enough. Alright. I'm going to be commentating a little bit less, since we only have about 3 minutes to finish this game. And if it goes as long as last game, then we're going to need all the time we can get. This hand is good against Duress, I guess. Alright, I drew Wellspring, which is basically incredible. Journey to Nowhere. Alright, this hand's looking a lot better. Our opponent cycles Barrenmoor. Alright, we will play the Core Skyfisher, so we can pick up the Wellspring. This uses our mana better than playing the Hawk. Pick this up. Play this. Pick up our Furnace, because it comes into play untapped. And we get it killed by Victim of Night. Choking Sands on our bounce land. Well, that's bad for us. It doesn't cripple us, however. They didn't show us any of those last game, so maybe they decided game 3 that they wanted them. Cycles a Barrenmoor. Duresses us, so they're going to get a Journey. And they pass a turn. So we get another Core Skyfisher turn. Play the Boros Garrison. And hope they don't choke the Boros Garrison as well, or we'll be in trouble. Another Victim of Night. We need to get a creature onto the table so we can start attacking. Alright, Grey Merchant before any other creatures. We've seen a lot of that this game. It's really not that scary. Alright, so do I want to Journey now? I think I do. I think him playing a Grey Merchant with no other creatures indicates he has another Grey Merchant. So I definitely want to get rid of that. It does slow us down from being able to do the rest of the cool stuff that's in our hand, but I want to do this anyway. This means I have to wait a turn on the Kuldotha Rebirth, but that's okay. I'm going to F8 here to save some more time. Alright, our opponent, Phyrexian Ragers. Sign in Blood, up to 4 cards in hand. Alright, so we're going to start off with Rebirth, sacrifice the Wellspring. And then, do we want to get our beatdown on? I don't think so. I think we want to maybe play one of these? No, not even one. Alright, that was perfect. Now we can play a Glinthawk without having to pick up our land and mess up our mana for these Mulldrifters. So we don't have any blue sources besides this Tranquil Cove that comes into play tapped, unfortunately. Alright, we're all the way down to 13. So what do we do? Start with Wellspring. Ooh, another one of those. I'll take it. Just a land. Okay. I can afford to play a Glinthawk now. I can still play my Mulldrifter next turn. And attack with my Flyer. Not with my 1/1s yet, but I can go wide since I have 6 Goblins now. Sign in Blood, still at 4 cards. Chainer's Edict obviously looks awful now, which is great for us. Let's see if our opponent attacks and wants to try to trade with Goblin tokens. They do not. Alright. We will start with Mulldrifter. Keep it in mind that even after playing Artifact Land, we are not going to have Metalcraft yet. Ooh, Firebolt. That's a good one. Alright, we'll take out one of these 2/2s and attack in the air for 4. Victim of Night takes out the Mole Drifter, which is odd. I would have taken out one of these ones that could attack this turn. But maybe he was afraid of us picking it up again. Rager. They're down to 12. They Chainer's Edict to get rid of the Goblin. Chainers again. So I'm going to do whatever I can to be able to Galvanic Blast the face to finish them off. So there's a life gain. There's a Mole Drifter. Still not attacking with these goblins. I could have this turn if I had those 2 more goblins, but they got killed by the Chainer's Edict. Alright, opponent has 1 card in hand. What can they do to us? Choking Sandsas. Okay, that's fine. So we're going to wait till next turn where we have Metalcraft, and then we're going to win. Opponents has 0 cards in hand. This takes them to 2. We could also take them to 1 if we wanted to by attacking with goblins. Alright, I apologize for having to play a little bit quicker there, but we did take it down with a whole minute to spare. So this is a really cool matchup against Mono Black Control. It often feels that one of these decks is just better than the other. There'll be matches that I play against Mono Black Control in testing where it's just, oh, Mono Black Control is just the better deck. They can just draw through their deck better, they have better removal, they have better life gain or whatever, and they take over the game. And then sometimes it feels exactly the opposite, like our deck is just better. And whoever's engine gets online first, it really matters who draws better. So I think this is actually a pretty interesting control versus control matchup. I'm glad we came out ahead here, although I do see that I need to play a little bit faster in the future. All right, on to match 2.